Hello, hello! I'm Maury, and today we'll be talking about magical girls. Sailor Moon and magical girls in general have been a fixation of mine since I was really little. Ever since my family showed me old VHS tapes of Sailor Moon Geek Dub, I was absolutely hooked. Sometimes the interest would ebb away a bit, often replaced by OCs or my new favorite video game, but it always came back stronger than ever. The time it probably came back the strongest was actually during my sophomore year of high school. I was facing one of the hardest periods of my life in that moment, and so I found something familiar. I began rewriting Sailor Moon. I worked on this on and off for about 4.5 years until one day I took a good long look at my work and I just changed so much, had so many twists and turns and embellishments that it was starting to get out of control. So I decided to take the bones of the ideas I'd come up with for my rewrite and I started working on my own thing. I've been working on this new story, The Cosmic Carousel, for about half a year now. Today I'd like to talk about how it came to be, how it's developed, and how it's going to continue. Let's get started! To me, there's long been an inherent horror to being a sailor soldier. This is a very big theme in my rewrite. The way becoming a soldier robs these young girls of their agency always scared me, especially at a time when I was completely powerless. Writing a story about this, about my favorite character in the world regaining her agency, made me feel hopeful, made me feel safe. This concept, the horror of being a magical girl, the horror of losing yourself to something otherworldly, is also what drove the creation of the Cosmic Carousel. For a quick aside, I do want to say that I do not believe the magical girl genre as a whole has any inherent horror. Magical girl stories are actually usually very cute coming-of-age stories, and I really love them. I'm a huge fan of the genre, so I just want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting it to anyone. The Cosmic Carousel has actually changed quite a bit in the past 6 months I've been working on it. The story centered on a literal circus at first, until I decided to ground it a bit more in reality. Since the Cosmic Carousel is not just a magical girl story, but also a psychological horror, I realized that it was really important for it to feel real enough to relate to. The story's themes of the effects of abuse, how people hurt others and themselves, and the way a person can lose themselves, what can happen in the end, all require something to ground the story in some semblance of reality. That way the viewer will have an easier time understanding the characters. Speaking of the characters, I think it's about time we talk about them. What am I destined to become? This question plagues many university students, but none more than Calliope Mitchell. She's 20 years old and still undeclared, and as her sophomore year at uni comes to a close, she knows she must make a decision. When she has no true passion in life, however, what is she supposed to do except what everyone else wants her to do? Calliope was originally based on Usagi Tsukino and underwent quite a few design iterations before landing where she is now. Her pink hair and star motif, present in the drawing here, have always stayed fairly consistent, even if her hair was blue for a moment. Given her inspiration, she was actually much more of an archetypical magical protagonist at first. She was quite peppy and had a whimsical air about her and her attitude. However, as the story changed, I realized that Calliope actually really needed to change too. She became more and more mature and a bit more moody, dealing with more serious issues as she was aged up from a high schooler to a university student. While I did really like early Calliope, I do think Calliope's current personality fits the story a lot more. Calliope is a musical prodigy and recipient of quite a few scholarships related to her talent. Despite that, she doesn't actually care much for music, especially not the classical violin she has to practice so much. Sure, it's beautiful, but it's also boring. It just keeps repeating over and over and over and over and over. Calliope knows she has to do something with her life though, and that music is probably the safest option. She also knows that it won't make her happy, but then again, has she ever really been happy? One day, after a strange dream, she receives a plush toy in the mail with no return address. Said toy turns out to be Wish, a strange creature offering Calliope a purpose. It is her destiny to protect the world from otherworldly forces that wish to harm it. She must become a magical girl. That's about all I'll say for Calliope right now. I've grown quite attached to her these past few months, and I'm honestly really excited to tell her story. I really love to illustrate her as well, having done probably the most drawings of her out of everyone. Calliope is she's just a really interesting character, and I think she's a really fun twist on the usual, pink-haired magical girl, or pink magical girl, if you subscribe to that kind of magical girl color theory that people tend to subscribe to. I really like her, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and I hope you guys like her too. Next up is another character I've also really grown to love, Jules Ellery. Jules isn't a magical girl like the others, but she's very important to the story. Jules is Calliope's roommate and has known her since the pair were in middle school. Calliope supported her through her transition as well as her deteriorating physical health, so Jules is more than happy to live with her. She's an art major, lucky enough to be sponsored by her family. Her family actually pay for her and Calliope's apartment as well as helping where scholarships cannot. In the realm of art majors, Jules is actually a fine art major. She absolutely loves to paint, her main medium actually being acrylics. Acrylics and gouache, I would think. She also loves to spend time with her friends, and her time on the early internet seeing as the story takes place in the 2000s. Through her major and her art classes, she meets Quinn Kepler and soon after Annette Morrow, who we will get to later, I promise. Eventually she forms close bonds with both of them and grows to really love them as friends. Despite, like I said, not being a magical girl, Jules is very important to the narrative, and she's also a very important character to me. She is very, very loosely kind of inspired by my girlfriend, and she's just such a positive light on the rest of the story that I think is just really important to have. Speaking of her light on the overall story, I tried to give Jules an overall angel motif. It's mostly in things like her ponytails and her hair looking like wings and the other little wing parts of her outfits, as well as, cool colors and light colors and white really giving that angel core kind of vibe to her. As much as I have praised her though, I do want to say Jules is still human. She is a chronic overachiever, seeing all the fortune in her life as much more of a reason to go big. She has to do her best, to be her best, to be the best. Otherwise, she's really earned nothing that she has, at least to her. She has to work against her disability and everything else she's struggling with in life, because otherwise, she's slacking. Jules comes across as happy-go-lucky and carefree, but she's really nothing of the sort. Throughout the story, that overachieving starts to get harder and harder for her to manage, because her friends are starting to act weird. I really, really love how Jules' design came out. She's so pretty, and I think I just really nailed the color palette there. I also really enjoyed picking out decorations for her forearm crutches. Jules is a ambulatory wheelchair user, which means that technically she can walk without a wheelchair, but it's a great piece of aid for her, and so she uses various different forms of aid throughout the story. I thought the crutches, out of all the options, made most sense for her character sheet, because it lets me show off her full design as well as her height in one image. Anyway, that's Jules. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me talk about her, and I hope I get to talk about her more in the future. On to our next character. If I just keep running, everything will be okay. This is the mindset that Quinn Kepler always returns to. When their parents treated them poorly, they ran away, barely graduating high school in the process. When she hurt them as well, they ran again to the arms of the first person to offer them protection. Quinn is a 19-year-old sometime student who lives with their friend Annette Morrow. He's remarkably good at bookkeeping, so he assists Annette with her budding dance school to earn his keep. He used to assist an agent in a larger ballet company before leaving with Annette, so he knows what he's doing. In their free time, Quinn enjoys drawing and exercising. That's actually how they meet Jules and Calliope, along with Annette, since Annette tags along. They first talk to Jules in a shared art class, and then meet Calliope later at lunch. This series of events is also what leads to Quinn becoming a magical girl. Okay, so Quinn is non-binary and transmasculine, even though it is the 2000s, that still existed. That's always existed. So they aren't really a magical girl, per se, but I'm kind of using that as a general title. I just want to let you guys know real quick that that is what's happening. Quinn is not a girl. When all three of the magical girls meet, they actually are eating dinner at Calliope's house. Suddenly, an otherworldly creature comes and attacks the heart of town that they're in. Calliope, Quinn, and Annette are all quickly transformed by Wish, the mascot character, into their magical girl forms. And this leads not only into their discovery that they are magical girls, but also into the very first fight scene of the story. Speaking of, I would actually absolutely love to get more into their magical girl forms and their powers and their weapons, but I feel like that would be better suited for a different video. So please let me know if you are interested in seeing that, and I'll get to working on it. Quinn, even before the events of the story, is extremely insecure, seeking safety and approval from those he looks up to almost obsessively. He tends to put those around him up on pedestals quite quickly, pedestals that he could never really reach. This has led to several unfortunate relationships for him, especially with past important figures in his life. They are actually able to form a pretty normal relationship with Jules, though. Since they have similar interests and they're both students, this leads to Quinn having much more of a normal view of Jules, especially since Jules is also transgender, which allows them to connect on a deeper level than Quinn is really able to connect with most people. Annette, however, is on about as high as a pedestal as Quinn could ever put someone on. She's almost a savior-like figure to him, not to mention he has kind of an infatuation with her. Just like a little crush. He knows she doesn't and probably will never feel the same way, but he just finds her perfect. Annette Morrow is actually the oldest of the quartet, only by a year though. She's cheerful, graceful, elegant, often drawing envy and adoration from her peers. When she was in her dance company just a year before, she was actually set to be the best of the best, top of the line, one of the most sought after dancers there. Deep down though, she hates it. Sure, it's great to be adored, but no one sees her as human anymore. Being both a teacher and a magical girl only makes this worse. It only makes her feel more distant from everyone she cares about. To her, all she wants is for someone to talk to her like she's a person again. Annette, like Calliope, is honestly viewed as a prodigy by the world around her, but unlike Calliope, she never really connected with anyone. She doesn't have a Jules. She loves to dance, and when she is lucky enough to open up a small dance school with her savings, she loves teaching. It feels natural, easy. It's honestly what her life has been for the most part. Easy. She spends her days working, reading, or exercising. It keeps her busy and focused, and it keeps her mind alive. Caring for Quinn isn't too bad either. Even with their small age gap, Annette feels an almost maternal urge to protect him after seeing how he's been treated for his entire life. She wants to be a stepping stone for him, a small piece in the path to a normal life, even if his adoration of her makes her feel like she has to be even more distant than she is with other people. He'll get over her, though. Everyone does. Annette is honestly harder to describe than everyone else. She's a deceptively simple-seeming character with a lot of her complexities being hard to elaborate on. She's one of those people who had to grow up too fast and continues to be more quote-unquote mature than her peers. It puts her in a weird place socially. I do hope as I keep writing and these characters start, I guess, telling themselves to me that her and Calliope end up closer, They have a lot of similarities that make them really interesting, but also they're also really different, and I think they would be good friends. In my opinion, they're a good fit. So that's about it. I had a great time talking about the Cosmic Carousel and our main cast with you. Like I said before, I would honestly love to know if anyone would be interested in more videos covering the story. I'd also really love to do more character design videos in general, with a format probably more focused on my process. So, if you have any questions, I would also really love to answer them about my process designing these characters as well. I really love character design, I really love writing, I really love magical girls, so I hope my passion comes through in this video, and I hope you're not afraid to comment, ask questions, and maybe even join the Discord server I made for the story. Feel free to check out my socials, and until next time, have a good day!